Data governance is important for organizations under the GDPR, as the data controller is responsible for how it processes personal data. So when it comes to explaining, both in terms of transparency, in terms of letting data subjects know how it's processing personal data, a company or an organization really needs to know, where its data is, how it's organized, how it's controlled, and be able to mitigate, risks attached to the processing of personal data. We're probably at a stage now in 2025 where we've seen a lot of legislation at the European level. So we have obviously the GDPR from a number of years ago. We have the procedural harmonisation regulation, which is still going through the trilogue. We have the European Digital Markets Act, the Digital Services Act. We have the AI Act, which two of those are in, and the third one is coming. We have political regulation. So and the Data Act. So there is no shortage of data acts which were passed by the last Commission, Council, and Parliament. So now we're in a situation where it's probably consolidation time in terms of operationalizing some of those acts, and we as regulators are working through that. We are in contact with other regulators on a constant basis, and one of the challenges we all face, both industry, organizations, data subjects and regulators, is how to make all that more seamless. So it's a work in progress, I should say. We all have a duty of sincere cooperation under the treaties to cooperate with each other, and really the ambition is to have an understandable, coherent, consistent framework for organizations to interact with the regulators on. I see some of the challenges around the future use of personal data. When control is being lost. In the pre-digital age, it was quite straightforward how to hold on to your physical records. In the digital age, there was much more control. And now as we see more data transfers, more processors, almost like a supply chain situation, we need to collectively work out pathways to show that there can be accountability. Because when the questions come, as they will come from regulators and from policymakers and data subjects, companies and organizations have to be in a position to explain where the personal data which they had is now. And that question of controllership and joint controllership is not something which, just because you sell a product, you can let go of. The other, I suppose, downstream challenge is if, for whatever reason, a regulatory action renders a particular product or service, be it an AI or generative AI or agentic AI product or service, renders that not capable of continuing because of unlawfulness, how that will impact both in terms of deployers and upstream in terms of the developers as well. So the more ethical guardrails we can put on the ecosystem, I think the better for everyone, and that's certainly the ambition, I think, of the regulators, if I could say that. International dialogue is critical. In Europe, we have a much better system, I think. There's a lot of coherence now, certainly with the European data protection regulators, but we see that in other spheres as well: competition law, content regulation. The challenge, of course, is when we go outside the EU. So we have for data transfers, we've adequacy agreements agreed with the Commission with different countries, and making sure that those stay intact and robust, and that there are rights and rights that can be operated. Then we have countries where there is no adequacy agreement, and that is more problematic, and it's really on the organisation to show that there is a route way for it to do what it proposes to do when it comes to personal data, because Europeans, under the GDPR, they have a right to expect the same levels of protection, not identical protection, but certainly very similar protections when their data is transferred to other countries. So this is a challenge, and we would like to move towards more convergence, and I think convergence is a nice phrase because it's bringing us all together, and I don't think it is a difficulty. I think that if we place fundamental rights at the centre of how we approach things and how we think about things, we can't go too far wrong. And even outside the EU, we have United Nations instruments which all states are party to, which can bring us together. And we can see in the Global Privacy Assembly, more and more countries are adopting data protection authorities who are getting the levels of independence and the funding which they need. And data is becoming such a central part of the global economy. We just have to make sure that we're building a safe ecosystem for the future, not just us, but for our children, but for future generations as well. The fact that a lot of people attend is testimony to the fact that people think that it is worth their valuable time to take the Venice is of course a beautiful venue, so that does help. But more seriously, it is these sort of events are a good opportunity for the exchange of ideas. Quite often organizations, be they policymakers, companies, organizations, regulators, they can talk within their own circles, and it is very important to be able to go and to listen, to hear concerns, to listen to different perspectives, and even just to get out of the office situation and just to reflect yourself. Even the process of preparing a speech means that you have to reflect on what it is, and are you being clear, and is your message clear? And that is, I think, incumbent on all of us to do. But certainly, I think the DPC has always found it useful to go and to actually be part of that exchange, and to be able to bring back learnings from some of these conferences, but also to come and to dispel some myths. I think it's good for organizations as well, where they feel that they can have a discussion with their regulator. And of course we would do that quite commonly in Dublin for the organizations we regulate in Ireland, as our peer DPAs do across Europe. But it is also an opportunity to question and to probe. So I would say, and also we can meet our peer regulators as well, so we can have chats in the margins as well. So one would wish to stay longer. Sometimes it's in and out very quickly, but it is a great opportunity to be able to come. In the DPC, we're moving from a one-person commission model, which was up until 2024, to a three-person commission model. So there is two commissioners at the moment, and we're hoping for a third to be appointed this year. That will bring to the conclusion that move. At the same time, we are conducting a review of our regulatory strategy. But in terms of this year, what we can expect is more focus on children's rights. And we'll be doing some collaborations with some international regulators on that. More focus on children and schools, and understanding your data, where it is, and how to keep it safe. There'll be more of a focus this year on even thinking about generative AI, the different aspects of it, both from a guidance and from an engagement and from an enforcement perspective. So that will continue to be a kind of a good area of work. And then we're doing, in Ireland, we're doing a lot of work with sports organisations, with organisations in the care and health and disability sectors. And one of the things which we're kind of, we want to see happen is that organisations don't stop transferring data when it needs to happen between maybe an elderly person moving from a hospital to a care home. It's so important the records go with them. We're also seeing a lot around surveillance, CCTV. If I have it on my house, we get an awful lot of these sort of queries. What do I need to do, and how can I balance all that? Because the dimensions of the GDPR, where we're all simultaneously a data controller, a data processor, and a data subject, those interactions, both in the individual and the organisational level, mean a lot. We also will continue to close out or to move forward a lot of our older inquiries, and we've recently done the TikTok inquiry, which we've concluded into data transfers. And that sort of work will continue as well. So just to finish, the other big area we're going to do is a focus on the interregulatory piece. So we've appointed somebody to head a new area to look at how we interact with the other regulatory systems as well. So we can do our bit as a regulator just to make sure that all that comes together a bit clearer. I think just be mindful, I'd say to organisations, to everyone in the privacy field, just be mindful of what we're doing and what our motivation is. And if our motivation is to make society and the world a better place, a safer place, where fundamental freedoms, including the right to personal data, is protected, are we doing something that we would be proud of on our deathbed?